What's going on, everyone? We're back for another live show. Going over tonight's NBA slate. I was not able to get anything done before for today's game, so we're going to actually do a little something different today. We're going to go over everything live and go break down our best bets for NBA tonight. We already have our 3 college bets in. If you haven't checked those out, we are going to be showing you those right now. As you can take a look at here, you could see over our last couple of days. Yesterday, we were 5-2 with a 1.2 unit profit. We've kind of been back and forth, a little bit less due to a couple parlays losing over the last couple of days. Like we said earlier, we had a rough December. But since we started using action, we have a winning record. We're just struggling a bit in our all-time unit usage. But if you can see even here, prop plays, we are dominating. So let's go ahead and break down our 4 plays, because we do have an early NFL bet for you guys. We have, so we're going to start with that one. I have Philly, Tampa under 44.5. These are 2 offenses that are just struggling right now. Baker Mayfield is hurt. He got hurt pretty dinged up in that game against Carolina. So I just think this is a good spot for the both defenses to kind of get on track here. I like the under in this one. We are going to have a couple more plays that are going to be posted later in the next day or so. We're going to have a video out for the games this weekend to get you guys a head start. But let's get into our college basketball action. Our first one is Clemson money line. I did take it at 0.6 of a unit just as a precaution, as my unit usage is different for college than NBA, because college is one that I'm not that familiar with. So my confidence level is a little bit different for college. But I do like Clemson in this spot here. Clemson's playing Virginia Tech after a very tough loss against UNC, and they played UNC very well. It just slowly fell apart for them at the end. This is a great get-back spot on the road. Travel up to Blacksburg and dominate Virginia here and come back home with a win. So I love them getting the win here. And the other one we're looking at is this game between Tennessee and Mississippi State. Now, Tennessee has been very good this year. I understand Mississippi State is not the team we were expecting them to be. As you can see over here, both of these teams have, outside of the South Carolina loss, they won, 4 or 5 consecutive games against a team that's won 7 consecutive games after 3 consecutive losses. But the big thing you have to look at is their three losses in their last 10 was an 8-point loss to UNC, 9 points to Kansas, and 4 points to Purdue. Their losses have been Georgia Tech, which has not been the best team. They lost to Southern University, and they lost to South Carolina, who has not been the best. As you can even see here on the right-hand side, both their offenses and their defenses on both teams are fairly solid, and their offenses have been hot. So I think this is a very good matchup game. I just think Tennessee has the edge on the road here. We even look at this season, their road loss numbers. They beat NC State, which was a big win on the road. Obviously, they had the Kansas UNC game, and then they also have beaten Wisconsin and Syracuse. Wisconsin has been a very sneaky dark horse team, and Syracuse, I think, with a couple good games, could bounce back and potentially make the tournament as the first team in, first team out games versus a team who has just dominated at home. But if you look who they've played, the only team that I would honestly notice that they've played is this Rutgers game and this North Texas game. North Texas is very solid, but just got outplayed by the Bulldogs. Outside of this, they have not played anyone big on the road. So with that being said, I just really like this I like this game for Tennessee. Now back to one of my favorite ones tonight is going to be this parlay for UConn to take down Xavier and Furman to take down Citadel. Now, the big one on this is this. UConn needs a big win. This is conference play on the road, and whether it has iffy as Xavier's been this year, this is an important game. The spread is a lot closer than it should be, which is why I'm taking the money line straight up, and I'm adding Furman in as a sweetener to get this down to -138. Furman has been hit with injury after injury. This will be one of the first times that potentially their top 3 players will be on the floor at the exact same time, going against a Citadel team that's number 1 scorer is out for the season. Their number 2 scorer is been out for the last 3 games with no timetable to return. So I love this spot for UConn and Furman. The numbers are obviously a little bit high. I don't trust Furman on a spread at -11, which is why I wanted to add this into the sweetener here. But with that being said, those are our 4 plays for tonight, or our 3 plays for college basketball and our top football play so far. Now, let's go ahead and break down some of these spreads in the NBA. So as you can see here, we got the Pacers -7.5, but a lot of this money is on the Wizards here. And that's something I'm really curious, because not only that, as you can see, a lot of big bettors are and a lot of money has been placed on the Wizards, and the model actually has it a little lower. I'm actually going to pull something back up on our handy dandy Action Network to look at something for. God, I wish. Why is there? I just never understand why their app on the phone is a lot different than their app on the website. So let me pull this up. So as you can see, over the last couple of games, they're 5-5 against the spread. I think actually, if we look at since their loss to the Lakers, they have not been the best on the spread. They had a good 5-game stretch, but they have not been the best over those last couple games. As I'm about to pull this up on my phone, so bear with me. You won't be able to see this one. But without Tyrese Halliburton this year, they've only covered the spread 1 time, and that was against Miami. They've played 3 games without Halliburton this season. In those games, they lost by 51 to the Celtics. They lost by 18 to the Timberwolves, and they beat Miami by 15 points as a 4-point underdog. Now, obviously, this is not the same team as these 3, but the way the Wizards have been playing is, if you can kind of see here, their last 5 games, they covered the spread against a really good Thunder team. The Knicks blew them out. And if you notice, though, one thing is this: their points numbers since the new year have kind of started going up after a couple bad games. This is a very bad defense that gives up 124 points a game to an offense that loves to fling the ball. Now, I think without Halliburton, you're losing a little bit of your defensive ability here. So I think that this the +8 is a little bit of something to look at, but we'll kind of pass on that for now and come back to it. We have Nuggets versus Jazz. Now, same thing here. A lot of people are taking the Jazz, who have been surprisingly, I don't want to say surprisingly, but they've been fairly solid. Now, this line's actually kicked down to 6.5. But as you can see here, a lot of the money is going on to Utah. 99% of the money is following Utah to cover the spread here. That is huge. And the projections have it at 4.7. So either not a lot of people are taking this game, but if you can see here, look, they're coming in hot, coming home. They had a 3-game road trip where they got blown out by 30. They beat Philly by 11, and then they beat Milwaukee by 16. Now, this is a team that I think Denver has kind of been iffy. They barely covered a spread here against Detroit. They only covered it by 1. They struggled against Orlando. They struggled against the Warriors, and they beat Charlotte at home. Now, at home, the spread's been on the road, excuse me. They've been fairly solid on the spread, I would say. They haven't covered in 2 of their last 2 games on the road versus a Jazz team that has covered the 6.5 spread in nearly every game at home in their last 10, including 88% of their games at home this season. They've covered the spread. So I think that's something to look at. I don't think this is one that I'm going to take, but if you like the Jazz here, if you like the way they're playing, that's a heavy lean. I would take that. So let's get into this Bulls game. I'm actually interested in this one because I'm curious why the Rockets are so low. I think the big thing is they have not played well without Dillon Brooks, but as you can see here, the bet percentage is fairly even, but 94% of the money is on the Bulls. So let's see why that is. As we look, injuries, no Dillon Brooks tonight, no Tari Issa tonight. Caruso, Levine, and Pat Williams are all game time decisions, which means Vucevic is 100% for sure playing. Since their return against Charlotte in their 2 games they've played. They've returned. They beat Charlotte by 13 and they beat them by 7. So I think that is a very solid case for them against a Rockets team who away from home has struggled against the spread this year, going against a Bulls team. As you can see here this season, they have covered the spread in 50. They've covered a 3.5% of the time. They've covered their spread 57% of their home games this year. So I think this is a good one here. I might take the money line here. This might be one that I'm willing to buy down on the points, but we'll come back to the money lines here in just a second. We're going to go through the rest of these games here. Sharp money is on the Spurs here, but not enough to justify it. We will get into that. I have a big play I love for that game that I'm going to show you guys later. Obviously, the really interesting one that I'm looking at in this game is a lot of people are a lot of the money is on Charlotte to cover against the Kings. And I'm very curious about that one, as the spread's supposed to be a little bit lower because, yeah, the Kings have not been the best last couple games, but I think this is a Charlotte team that just doesn't have the best. I don't think they have enough of a good team to really fight against this one, as no Gordon Hayward, no LaMelo. Cody Martin might be out. PJ Washington might be out going against a fully healthy Mark Williams is out going against a fully healthy Kings team. They have played once already, and Charlotte did win that matchup, and I think that's feeding into it. But I think this could be a good get-back game for Sacramento here, especially with the way they've struggled the last couple of games. They haven't covered a spread outside of that Detroit game in their last 4, including this one against Charlotte. So I'm probably going to back the Kings here. We'll come back to that one. Thunder game, I'm not too sure. I never like betting 4 against the Heat, so that one's kind of going to get played out here. Now, this Pelicans game is really interesting. For a spread being my thing that's big on this one is this. So let's look at this one real quick. So the spread is 1. It opened at 1. It's only moved up to 1.5. 95% of the money is on 95% of the bets, and 98% of the money is on the Pelicans to win. Now, I'm curious as to what that is. Obviously, Draymond Green's coming back. This will be his first game back with the team, as far as we know. So Zion is game time decision. Alvarado is game time decision. Draymond will not play. No Chris Paul and no Gary Payton. So the big thing that I'm curious with in this game is it because Zion is questionable? Is that why the spread's so low? What's the reason for the spread being where it is? So, breaking news, Kawhi just signed a contract extension with the Clippers, so that's going to be big tonight. But this is a game I'm really interested in looking at. That's something that really is kind of curious to me, that this started at a 1 and it's only at a 1.5 now. With 95% of the votes going that way, I feel like it should kind of move up a little bit higher. But again, this is a Warriors team that's riddled with injuries. This could be kind of a get-back spot after a Pelicans team that is kind of, I don't want to say is kind of coming off an easy win, but they did dominate, and this is going to be the first game of their road trip tonight. So let me see what they have. They might be looking ahead based on who they're playing. Yeah, they got the Nuggets next, so they might be looking ahead. They just beat Sacramento in Sacramento by 30. And then they have to face the Mavericks twice before coming home. So they're going to be on the road for a full week here. This could be a letdown spot for this team. So I think if you think that this is going to be close, I would say take the Warriors. If you think this is an easy blowout, I think the Pelicans here. But let's go on. So this is one I think I'm actually taking. So let's look at this Raptors team. For one big reason tonight, and that is this. This is the second to last game of a 7-game road trip. They've been on the road since January 3rd. They have tonight and the Jazz left. They had a very tough loss against a Lakers team, and they're facing a Clippers team that is very good. If you look at their last 5 games, they've won 4 of those 5. Not even that. Let me show y'all something on this game. And this is why I like this one, and I'm taking this -9.5. I don't like these big spreads. I would put it in a teaser if you can. But let's look at something real quick. In their last 5 games, they have covered a 9.5 point spread in every game but 2. They beat Phoenix by 27. They lost to the Lakers. They won by 16 to the Pelicans. They won by 17 to the Heat. They only won by 9 against Phoenix last time. Last 10, if you even look farther, look, 9-point win. Tough loss, 9-point win, 11-point win, 17. So they haven't had a game go under a win go under 10 points, or under 9 points and over 10 games. And they're going against a team in Toronto who, they were underdogs in their last 2 games, and they lost by 1 and they won by 15. But if you look at their road trip so far, 5-point, 5-point, 15-point, 1 point. They're going against a Clippers team without their top interior defender in Jakob Poeltl. They have had a close game over and over and over again. I think this is a good spot for the Clippers to kind of blow out a team that could potentially have some players, I don't want to say on rest minutes, but I see why people are taking this. So I think that's going to be one of our first plays. Now, this started at 9.5 and it stayed at 9.5, which means I think a lot of people even though the projections have it around 7.1, a lot of money and a lot of professional bettors are taking the Clippers here. So we're heading along the same path as them, and we're going to take the -9.5 for the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, we got 2 more games, and then we're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back and look over the totals and the money lines, and then we're going to break down some NFL bets we're going to look at some of the NFL bets and look at some we're going to do that, go to another break, take a look at player props, and then we're going to finish off with some NFL quick action. So let's break down these last 2. Now, I took the Celtics at -6.5 earlier as a personal bet. I didn't put it on my posted plays, but I do like this at -8, and I'll tell you why. Now, obviously, the numbers are going to say this is going to be a closer game than it is. A lot of people are saying this could be a letdown spot, but a big thing to watch out for in this game is this. Against the spread after a loss, the Celtics are 37-13-2 in their last 52 games. They do not take losing lightly. They rarely lose back-to-back games. They cover every time they have not covered after a game pretty much. And this is a game that the injury report doesn't show much right now. As I'm taking a look at it, Mike Conley isn't playing tonight for rest. Rudy Gobert is game time decision. But on the other side, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis are all game time decisions. The fact that this line started at 6.5, the injury report came out, and it still kicked up to 9. I think that could mean Rudy Gobert is not playing tonight. I think it could mean that we might see a little bit less of him, and they kind of know that. It may mean that Porzingis and Holiday are playing. So I think this is something to really watch out for. I would take it at 8. If it goes even higher up to 9, I would stay away. But let's see where it's an 8 at. It's an 8 at nowhere. It's not even an 8 anymore. The best you could take it is a 9.5 on BetRivers. So ever since that news of Mike Conley came out, then the spread has just kind of kicked up a bit. Let me re-add that. So I think if you can find this somewhere, you want to lower it down and buy down in the points, I would. But I think this might be a sign that Rudy Gobert is not playing tonight. So be very mindful of that when you're making any bets on this game, any player prop bets. And lastly, we have the Sixers and the Hawks. Now, this is actually a good game. I'm going to click on it and show you this might be a good game to middle. And this is what I mean by that. So as you can see here, let's see if it shows. It's not even showing anything. Let me try this again. So as you can see, you can get this at plus 100 on Caesars. And if you take Atlanta's side, you can get it at plus 100 on BetMGM. So you could bet essentially $10 on either side of this and come out with a profit, because either way you're either going to be doubling your money, or you're going to be making like you could do it like this. Let me show you guys. So I'm going to put it in on MGM for the Hawks. And because I think the Hawks could win this matchup. So what I'm doing is I'm going to place a $5 bet on the Hawks to win. And then I'm going to go to Caesars. And so Caesars has already kicked it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a $7 bet on Caesars, because so Caesars has it at minus 110 for Philly right now, and MGM has 100 for the Hawks. So meaning with that, if the Hawks win, I get $10. I'll have a profit of $4 in that case, because I put $6 on the oh my god, why am I blanking right now? I put $6 on the Sixers on Caesars, which gives me a $5.45 profit. So meaning if Philly wins, I still get at least I get my money back. If the Hawks win, I get like a $4 profit. So either way, I'm making some sort of money back on this game. And that's kind of the things you want to look for. Is that's how you middle, is you find a way on one book or the other to make money. So in this case, if Philly wins, I pretty much break even, a little bit higher. If Atlanta wins, I make a profit. So, and then when you make that up to like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, you still come out with some kind of profit. So in this case, you could bet if you go, so Caesars has a boost that you can take Caesars has a boost, or no, excuse me, BetMGM has a boost to boost a play by 25%. So you could almost even take both of these and have them at plus money. So, which is what I should have done now that I looked at it and I panicked and I didn't put everything together. So you can even, let's see if it'll let me do it again. No, I didn't. I used my boost. So, but we'll figure out a way to get this done. Coming up after the break, we're going to look at the totals and the for this one and any player props that look good. And then we're going to break down tonight's this weekend's NFL slate and best ways to bet it.
My name's Ryan Allison. I've spent over a decade immersed in the art of tattooing. Sharply honing my skills has materialized into a diverse and prestigious body of work. Each tattoo reflects my relentless pursuit of excellence, and every client I work with is a living embodiment of that unwavering commitment. I will gladly and wholeheartedly embrace your distinct vision.
Durham Remodeling has been serving the Quad Cities area since 1973. And with over 50 years of excellence on their track record, you'll see why it's so easy to trust their experts when it comes to all of your home improvement projects. This family-owned business has you covered on all your needs. Protect your home or building from the elements today and get great roof repair services. Need new windows? No problem. Durham Remodeling can upgrade your windows and doors. Whether you want to upgrade the little details in your home or office, or want to tear a room down and start fresh, the expert contractors at Durham Remodeling have your back. Even the smallest changes can completely transform your space. Ready to start entertaining your friends for backyard barbecues? Durham Remodeling will help you plan, design, and build your deck and patio for the perfect outdoor space. Durham Remodeling's work is 100% guaranteed, so you can rest assured that you're getting the best service around. Call 309-786-6715 today for your free estimate for all your roofing, siding, flooring, windows, and painting needs. That's Durham Remodeling, 309-786-6715.
Alrighty, welcome back. So let's go ahead and break down some of these totals tonight. And so the big one that I'm probably going to stay away from, because as we talked about earlier with this team, when Halliburton is not playing, their offense struggles. They have only scored more than 110 points one time, and that was against the Heat team that was depleted. We are going to stay away from this one. I know it's the Wizards. I know they're terrible, but they're missing one of their biggest pieces, which is Tyrese Halliburton. So with that being said, I might stay away. I might even take this under. I think 253 is way too high for this game. I think even the pro projections have this one they have this closer to 250. So I think the 252 might be a good bet, but a lot of the money is on the over as usual, which is like a guarantee for this team. But I think this could potentially be an under situation. 253, you could get that. I think it's over on Caesars. So going to the next one, 240. I think this one also might be a stay away here. I think we're gonna, I think because Atlanta has been riddled with injuries. Their offense hasn't been flowing. There's no Joel Embiid tonight. A lot of the money is on the over here. I just can't find a way to trust this team. I know a lot of the money is there, but this might be like a lean later in the night. This Jazz game, I'm actually interested because this is one that I kind of like. I know the Jazz play fast, but they play to their opponent. As we look here, they went over in their last 10 games. They've hit the under. Mostly both of these teams have been unders for a majority of this season. Now they've only played once this year, and it was in fact an under. It was 102 to 110. But let's look at when they played earlier. It was, I think both teams had a day off, so it wasn't like a back-to-back. Or the Jazz or the Nuggets had a back-to-back, but that was after a 30-point blowout win, so it wasn't like anything tiring here. But yeah, this one is one that I kind of like the under here. I'm willing to rock with this one. As we can see there, the over-under line is currently at they're projecting about 239. But what I've noticed is, as you can see right here, 90% of the money is on this game. The under is getting 90% while 36% of the bets. I think this is a good play to play. I think this is a great place because with all the money, it's only went down half a point, meaning it's called reverse regression. They want you to think that, hey, a lot of the thing hasn't moved, which means they might think it's an over. But I think this is a good under spot for both teams. I think they're both going to they play very slow, methodically. And I think that Denver, unless there's an injury that I haven't seen, no, nothing big for them injury-wise. I think this is a great spot for them to play some really good defense. So we're going to take them on that one. Now, this game right here is interesting to me. So there's no money on the over under yet, like any percentage wise, because I guess they haven't had that many bets so far for it. But I'm curious on this game mainly because this team is playing without their best player, and this is their second straight game against a team that doesn't have defense. So with that being said, that over seems like a good possibility. But was that how they really are playing, or was that just lucky? I think there is a bet I'm really looking at for this game, and I'm going to pull it up real quick and show you guys because it's really interesting to me. It's one that I'm trying to see. I don't think they even have it on here because I was trying to find it before. Here we go. So something I found interesting, I'm going to pull this up here, is the Pistons have played surprisingly well on the money line in some of their in the first quarter. So as you can see here, their last 3 home games, they beat them in the first quarter. And then everything seemed to fall apart. Even the ones they didn't, look, 2 points to Utah. They were getting blown out by Philly. They beat Indy in the first, 2 points to Memphis. They beat Cleveland in the first, blowout in LA, and only 4 here. Versus this Spurs team, when they're losing in the first, they are getting cooked. And when they're winning, they're close. So you could even take, let's see what the first quarter spread line is. You could even take Detroit 2.5. Let me see what books have that. I think that might be just them. So let me see if it might be at like 1.5 at some other books. Yeah, MGM and DraftKings are the ones that have it. So I would just take it at 2.5. So I think that's one that we're gonna add here. Let me pull this game up. I think that's gonna be. I think that's going to be one of our. I think that's going to be one of our big plays today. Is I'm going to take Detroit on the first quarter spread. I think this is one that they can kind of get to this team. I think that's going to be our big play for that game. So, with that being said, see, we got all our plays there. Let's go through the rest of these real quick, and then we're going to do a quick projection look at what the money line should be at, and then run through some player prop projections that Action Network seems to like and the ones that we like as well. So Timberwolves, this game they're looking at the over, which is more sign that I think Rudy Gobert is not going to be playing. There's not going to be, if him and Porzingis are both out, there's going to be less interior threats, and they're going to be slashing like crazy tonight. So I do kind of like that line right there. The under here is curious. They got beat by a team they shouldn't have, and they gave up a lot of points yesterday to Detroit. So I think could be a good under look. We don't know what the money percentage is at right now, but as you can see, 84% of the people are leaning with the under here. A lot of sharps are leaning on the under here. I think this might be a good look. This might be something to look at a bit later. Thunder Heat under. I don't know how I feel about this one, honestly, because, again, I don't like taking almost any line for any of these teams. So this line is legitimately projected at 233.4. So this is way too sharp of a line to, kind of justify. If you could get this at 236, I would take the under there. If you could find that, that's actually crazy. But I think the Thunder's offense is just too fast, and with no Jimmy Butler, they don't have as many offensive threats or defensive threats. We don't know too much on the Rockets-Bulls game yet, so that's going to be a pass. Pelicans-Warriors, again, we don't have any money line numbers, and this game is just going to be a pass. So we'll run over where the money line is. A lot of the money is on the Timberwolves. We got a lot of the money here and the bets on the Pacers. An interesting one here that I actually like, because a lot of the spread was on, well, that fucked it up. A lot of the spread money was on Chicago to cover a 4-point favorite, but a lot of the money is on Houston here. So that might be something to look at. That might be a good middling thing to look at. We already talked about earlier, 99% of the money is on the Pelicans to cover here. I as much as I think that it would be fun to see a Warriors kind of comeback, I don't think it'll happen. As we look here, 98% of the bets are on the Clippers. We got the interesting here is we have 68% of the bets and 92% of the money on the Sixers. So that's definitely one I'm looking at here that I think is good. And again, a lot of people think that the Spurs are going to take this one down. Thunder are highly favored. There's not much here that kind of justifies it. We even looked the best projected bets so far on money line is the Timberwolves. They say it should be a lot lower than it is. It should be around 176. Wizards to win should be a little bit lower. They said that the Kings should be at minus 192, which is interesting to me. That game should be a lot closer. Nothing really, as we were talking about earlier with the total, but on the spreads, a lot is favored for some of these underdogs to cover the spread. There's not a lot of these spreads that the favorites are a little bit mispriced. So with that being said, let's run through some top prop projections for today. This one has actually been up here a lot. Rudy Gobert has not gotten a lot of blocks in the last couple of games. Fontecchio, I don't really trust. Kispert is one I actually might take this one. This is one that I think is really interesting. Corey Kispert has been doing decently the last couple games. He's averaging about 10 points a game over his last 10. He's hit the 11.5 line in every game but 3 in his last 10. And his last game against Indiana, he had 23. No Halliburton means no length, and they're going to be focusing on Poole and Kuzma. So I think if you don't take him for the 11.5, you could probably take him for like a couple threes maybe. His 3-point line is at over 1.5. He's hit this in he hit this one in the game where he scored 23, and he's hit this in 6 of his last 10. He had a 4-game stretch where he missed it, but I think that's also a good bet. But other than that, I don't see much that I like. I think one player I'm really curious to look at his line. So, and I can't find anything on it, like his projections on here. So I'm going to use one of the apps on my phone. But TJ McConnell is going to step into that starting line. Or is TJ McConnell out? Did I not see that on the Pacers injury report? Where's TJ McConnell? Maybe they don't have any props up for TJ McConnell. That's weird. I think he's going to be the one starting. Yeah, so they don't have anything up for McConnell yet, so I think they want to see who the starting lineups are. But watch his assist line. If you can get it last minute, take his assist at 6+ at least. When Halliburton didn't play, he was putting up a good amount of assists, so I do like him for that. But coming up after the break, we are going to be breaking down the NFL games for this upcoming weekend and putting together our best bets for this weekend. So let's lock that in.
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Cards Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Enter Pit Row with Rod Villagomez and Fast Money as we win the checkered flag with NASCAR, Xfinity, and truck race winners and props. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? We've got a double dose of action there. The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Want an analytical take? Nick Gurl and the team at Gridiron AI come to you each week with The Lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellas come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Can't get enough of Joe? He comes to you 3 times a week. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip on into the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
All right, so let's get to it. This is a big one. We're going to make our first bets for the NFL playoffs tonight, and we're going to have a breakdown of Saturday's games up for Saturday morning, and we're also going to have a breakdown for Sunday's games up on Sunday morning. So make sure you guys watch out for that. Those are going to be our official bets, including player props, leans, teasers, and even we might even have a couple parlays in there. So let's break down this first game here. So we got the Browns versus the Texans here. The spread is at 2.5 for this game. First thing that I am going to look at here is let's look at the spread. So projections have the Texans closer to a 1. Now, obviously, this game's close. It has not moved. A lot of the money is on the Texans here, but I want to look at a couple stats this year. The big thing for Cleveland is when Joe Flacco took over. Since that game, they have only they have missed the spread one time, and that was against the Rams. They beat Jacksonville. They beat Chicago. They killed Houston 2 weeks ago and without CJ Stroud, and they beat the Jets by 17. The only one that he did not play in since his tenure with this team was against the Bengals, and that game was just no one playing. So, but on the other hand of this, we look at games where CJ Stroud has played. Now, obviously, he missed both Tennessee. He missed the first Tennessee game and the Cleveland game, and in those games, they were destroyed. They lost by 3. They lost by 14. But if we look at the games that he did play, if we take out these two, if you look, they covered both spreads against Tennessee and Indiana in their last 2. The game he got hurt, they didn't cover. They covered against Denver. They struggled against Jacksonville. They struggled but still won against Arizona. They covered as an underdog here. The big thing I'm looking at is this. As an underdog this year, they are 6-3 as an underdog this year. As a 2.5 point, they've covered as a 2.5 point underdog. At least they have covered. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They've covered in 12 of their 17 games a 2.5 point spread, including a lot of these games where they were an underdog and they won. They were a 7.5 point underdog in Jacksonville. They won by 20. They were a 3-point underdog to Pitt, and they decimated them. They were underdog to Atlanta and New Orleans by the same one. They won each game. Or I think they lost to Atlanta. They lost by 2. They're 5-point underdog to Cincy, and they won by 3 with a healthy Joe Burrow. They have been playing well, so I think that's one thing to look at. But I think this is a game I might pass on for now. I might look at some stuff later. This might be a player prop only game because I do want to see how CJ Stroud is going to do against this really good defense. But total wise, I think the big thing we're looking at here is if you look at over 44.5, they did go way over this line with the backup quarterback putting up 22 points is very good against this defense. But since Joe Burrow came in, they have went over in every game but one. And that one game they didn't go over, they finished a half a point under. They missed it. It was 37, and they had 37.5 as the spread. They've covered a 44-point spread they've scored 45 or more points in every game Flacco has played but that Chicago Bears game. So that is something that I'm really looking at here. But the big one is that Houston has went under in their last 2 games. They went over against that Cleveland game we mentioned, but they have been kind of over and under. At home, they have been essentially an under machine. They went under in a lot of their games and then there's a Browns team that has went over in majority of their games. So as I said, this might be a game we're going to look at player props a little bit later in this week. It's going to be probably a player prop game. Now, I do have a big one that I am taking. I'm following along with the money and the bets, and we are going to take under 44 in a half for the if it'll pop up in this game, because one, it's a playoff game. Two, I'm going to pull it up right here, and I'm going to show you why before we get into the spreads. So let's look at the unders this season for Miami. Now let's look at their unders compared to their overs. Their unders: Buffalo, playoff team; over, Baltimore, blowout with a lot of injuries; Dallas, under, playoff team; under, Jets; over, that Titans loss; over against the Jets; over against the Commanders; under against the Raiders; under against the Chiefs. Again, a playoff team and a team who at the time had a better defense than half the league. Under against Philly, a playoff team. They went over in their blowout against Buffalo. They went over against Denver. Their big games this year, their matchup against Philly, their matchup against both matchups against Buffalo, their matchups against Kansas City, they have all went under. They have been an under. When they've played these bad teams, they're essentially letting the ball rip so they can see, just so they can see what their players are worth almost, it feels like. So with that being said, I like this under here. Not to mention, if you haven't seen the weather in Kansas City this weekend, I'm about to pull it up for you guys right here. They're getting hit with a winter storm right now, and it is bad. So let's look right here, whereas we're going to go to weather.com, a site I never thought I would be using for a betting thing. But let's look at this. During the day, before this game starts, it is going to be 10 degrees, a high of 10 degrees with 13-mile-an-hour winds. By the game start time, it is going to be -5 degrees. It's going to be one of the coldest games they've ever played. The winds are going to be moving 10 to 15 miles an hour. And if you remember from one of our systems that we ran a while back in the last game, as I'm going to try to pull that one up. Let me find it. Pull this up right here. Windy unders. All right, that is college. Why did it pick me in a college one? Average wind speed between 10 and 50 miles an hour. The temperature is between 33 and 90. This has hit in this amount of games. Now, obviously, this is not going to be within that weather. There is one in here. I just got to find it. But there is one. The beauty of this is not only is it going to be cold, it's going to be freezing. And the wind is going to be blowing. It's going to be snowing. This is not a game to be throwing the ball. This is not going to be a great game for Mahomes. This is not going to be a great game for Tua. We might see their passing lines low, so this might even be a prop stay away. But this is a perfect game for an under against two teams that everyone believes is going to go over in this game. As you can see, a lot of this money is already going to the under, and it's dropped about 3 points. But you can find this at 44.5. I would take this at 44.5. That's a great line to be at for this bet. And so that's what we're going to take. We took the under 44.5. Now let's go really quickly through these Sunday games, as we've already talked about Monday. So, and again, I'm not touching anything on the spread. I think you could take Chiefs money line if you take anything at this point. But I think as we go on, it's getting worse. So you could take it with like Pacheco 50 yards, something like that. Steelers and Bills, I think this is a pass for many reasons. Buffalo is on a playoff game, but they have not, from what I remember, they have not been the best on a 10 or more spread. They have not covered this spread much this year. They've only covered this spread 5 times this year. However, the big thing to note is of this spread, 2 of the teams they've covered this a 10-point spread on have been the Dolphins and the Cowboys. So but the big thing is when they've been a 10 or more point favorite team, they have not covered. 14.5 favorite to New England, they won by 6. 12.5 point favorite to the Chargers, they won by 2. A 10-point favorite to Tampa Bay, they won by 6. 15-point favorite to the Giants, they won 14-9. They just have not been able to cover really any spreads above 7. They've only, I think, covered twice this year, and that was the Jets game and that was the Raiders game in week 2. So I think that's one reason to kind of stay away from this one, because the Steelers are not only have they been getting most of the money, they're projected 8.1, and there's also a system here. There's a system of bet against the public in the playoffs. It is a 65% win rate and a 26% return on investment, meaning you get a lot of money back on this one. But a lot of the sharp money and a lot of the top bettors are taking the Bills here. So again, I think this just might be a stay away. In terms of the total, I think we're rocking the same thing. I think this is going to be a low scoring game, but look how far that's kicked down already. It's not worth taking at this point unless we see anything and it's showing that it's really going down. Packers Cowboys is very interesting. A lot of people are on the Packers here. Maybe it's the bias of the Cowboys over the last couple playoffs not being able to perform, but this is Jordan Love's first playoff game. He's going against a top tier defense. I don't know how I feel about that one, so I might stay away from that, but I am looking at this total right here. I do kind of agree with the public here. I do think this is going to be a very high scoring game because of one main reason. These are the 2 top passing quarterbacks in terms of touchdowns. These are 2 offenses that like to run. I think if the Packers don't, keep up with them, I think the Cowboys can decimate this defense. So I'm looking for a lot of scoring here. This might be a watch to see how it moves over the next couple of days, but that's what I'm taking there. And Rams Lions, I'm taking the over here. 51, it hasn't moved. 81% of the money is on the over here. I just think that this might be too heavy of a game for both teams. Lions' first playoff game in a while. Projections are putting this closer to 2.5 instead of 3.5, so it could go down. I would take it all the way down to 2.5, but I do like Rams here. This, again, I'm going to see how this moves over the next day or so once we hear more about players and injuries, because I think if Laporta plays, this can kind of affect it a little bit differently. So we just want to see on that. But 96, you can't argue with 96% of the money. Projections, big bettors, everyone's on the Rams here. I think this is a good spot for the Rams. I think they've caught fire at the right time against a Lions team whose passing defense has not been the best. They let Nick Mullins go off for a lot. So we're going to add in that in real quick right there. So that is our plays for today. Those are going to be our best bets for tonight's action, the NFL upcoming game. And once again, guys, make sure you guys tune in throughout the week, as we're going to be doing a full breakdown of our best bets of that. Probably Friday, we're going to have a video uploaded Saturday morning and Sunday morning going over all of these bets. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Thank you guys all for watching. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, on YouTube at Gotham Gambling, at For Frequency's Sake Network. We're posting new stuff every single day. Make sure you guys stay tuned. And if you guys are still wanting your fantasy football fix, we are running a fantasy football playoff challenge. It's a $5 entry fee. DM us your information. You set a lineup every single week, and and we have a couple rules for it, and you can win money every single week. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys keep going for that if you're in for some fantasy football. Thank you guys again for watching. Y'all have a great night.